Welcome to another week of online math. I just wanted to, well, this week we're going to be looking at hundreds. So last week we looked at tenths, and now we're going to go a little step further. So I'm going to tell you first that we're going to review tenths. So this screen here is a bit of a review of last week's lesson. But keep in mind that the number lines are so important. If you don't understand where decimals come from and what we're looking at, there's no point in doing decimals at all. So the understanding of the number line is so very important. So it starts off pretty easy. Like when you were in grade, one, even younger. I mean, everyone knows how to count to five. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay. Now, what we don't tell you is that in between there are little numbers that are there, but you have to zoom in to see them. So if I put the 0 here, and then so here's the 0, and I'm going to put an arrow. Okay. And then the 1 is here. So we are zooming in from, there we go. Okay. So everything we're looking at are all these little numbers that are in here that are kind of waving at you, that you have to almost have like a microscope to zoom in to see what's in between 0 and 1. And last week we learned that you can count up by tenths in between each. So you can say here's a 0.1, here's a 0.2, here's a 0.3, here's a 0.4, here's a 0.5, here's a 0.6, here's a 0.7, here's 0.8, and then here's 0.9. Now, we also learned that when you have a number with tenths, like here, so we could say that this is 0.4, we can say it's 4 tenths. You can add a 0 after it, and it doesn't really change the value. Okay, so that's what we did last week, and then we added them, we subtracted them, we multiplied them, and this week we kind of go on. So I'm going to move the screen over, and we're going to keep one number line. So I'm going to keep the number line where we had the tenths. Okay, so if I go back for a second, okay, I'm keeping basically this number line right here. Oops. Try that again. So I'm keeping this number line. Now this number line here is at the top this time. So we counted up by tenths. Here are the numbers between 0 and 1, all these little decimal numbers. Now what we're going to do this week is we're going to zoom in again, right? So this time I'm going to pick any number, we're going to zoom in here. Okay. Now I could zoom in anywhere, but I'm just going to give you one example. So at first we zoomed in between 0 and 1 to see tenths. Now we're going to zoom in between 0.1 and 0.2. Here, I'll get my pointer. So we're going to zoom in between 0.1 and 0.2, all these little numbers in here. And what we're going to find when we zoom in are hundreds. Okay, so it starts off with me writing each of the numbers on the side. So here is 0.1, here is 0.2. So here are my tenths. Now to kind of help you visually, I'm going to put those arrows back. So there is 0.1, and here is 0.2. Now, again, these numbers here are all in between 0.1. So this whole number line is here. Okay, so to do that, now that I think about this, it's going to, it's going to be kind of tight writing, but anyway, I'll give it a go. So the first number is going to be 0.11. Okay, the next one is going to be 0.12, right? So the next one's going to be 0.13. Okay, then we're going to have 0.14. Okay, so we're counting up by 100th each time. We're adding 100th to each number. So the next one will be 0.15. Okay, then we'll have 0.16, okay, counting up by hundreds, but now we have 2 decimal places instead of 1, and that's where the lesson or the homework that you're doing has hundreds instead of just tenths, so a little bit more challenging. And then finally we have 0.19, or we could say 1900ths. Okay, so if I take one of the numbers like I just said, so here's 0.15, we can say that this is 500ths. Okay, so finally we're just going to review the lesson. I'm going to tell you that like I said before, and I started, I mean, if you don't understand where decimals are on the number line, it's lost, right? You have to know where decimals are. So at first we did a review of tenths. We zoomed in from here to here, and then so there's the big number line, and we counted up by tenths. Okay, so there we go. We're counting up by tenths. Then we took the same number line. Okay, and it's over here. So here's that number line, and we're looking at the numbers in between here. And it's a 0.1 and 0.2, and then we have these numbers in between. So there's 0.11. I could say this is 1200ths, 1300ths, 1400ths, 1500ths, 1600ths. I could say that this is 0.17. This is 0.18, and I can say that this is 1900ths. Okay, so if you understand this, then the rest of the lesson is much